What's up, everyone? This is Matt Mrozik, and this is my salt and pepper 1/4 scale robin. Just finished this the other day, actually last night. Actually adjust the color a little bit. He's looking a little. Give me 1 second. Adjust it just a little bit. 34. That's pretty good. So this color that you're seeing right now is pretty accurate. Starting with the face, young guy, young character, so I kept the skin tones pretty light and pale. I'm starting to really being able to dial in my skin tones, which is really awesome because those have always been tough for me, but I'm painting a lot more, so I'm getting a lot more practice doing skin tones. The gloss red, I decided to do something different, simply because I've seen all these other robins with a matte suit and kind of a reddish orangish kind of color, so I wanted to do something really kind of blingy and something that would really stand out. So I went with an ultra high gloss candied red for the suit. Now there is shading on the red, and in case you don't know, got a feather dust here because there's a lot of dust on him and in the air. Anytime you do shading and then gloss coat it, the shading isn't as prominent as if you were to flat coat something, and that's just the nature of the gloss. Got a little piece of tape here I want to get off. 1 second. I don't know where that came from. Sorry. Just saw something on the arm here I want to get off. It's sticky. Masking tape from something. Okay. I think I got it all off. There we go. So there's a little piece of tape stuck to his arm that I wanted to get off. So back to the red. So I went with a candied red, and I did shade everything before I laid down the red, but with a gloss coat, shading gets lost a little bit. It shows up much better in person than it does like on the video or in the picture that I'm about to take. And the process for the red was, when you do a high gloss, there's a lot more work involved because you gotta make sure your surface is really smooth. So even though it came primed from the factory, I primed it with Mr. Surfacer 1500. I wet sanded that with 4000 grit sandpaper. So basically when I got done wet sanding, it was the primer was shiny. I put down a layer of gloss black. I let that cure for overnight, and then I went in with Mr. Color gunmetal chrome. Now it's not anyone who paints chrome, it's like almost impossible to get like a chrome finish with paint. I know guys that can do it with all clad, but I've kind of stepped away from all clad. It's too fragile. But it gave me a real nice bright shiny silver to start with. On top of the silver, I went in and did all my pre-shading with just the clear black. So in all the muscle recesses, all the wrinkles and stuff, I did a layer of clear black. Once that was done, I laid on several coats of Mr. Color GX Deep Clear Red. And I just kind of kept building it up till I got the tone I wanted. And at the very end, it was looking a little dark, so I hit it one more time with a couple coats of Mr. Color just Clear Red. It's a really bright red. Think of it like a fire engine red, and it just brightened up the red just a little bit. It got exactly where I wanted. To get the gloss coat, that's my trusty old U-Pole Automotive Acrylic Polyurethane clear coat. It's a 2-stage clear coat. It's got the clear coat and a reducer / hardener. And I sprayed that on at a high PSI, around 40 PSI through my airbrush. And I typically would do like a dry coat, and then I would do wet coats on top of that. I just went straight on wet with this. With such a big piece, it's really imperative when you're doing a gloss coat like this that you do it as fast as you can, because you don't want to get a dry edge. And if you do get a dry edge, you have to really quickly make sure you start where you left off, because as it cures, you'll see a spot where you ended your spray pattern. So I basically ended up putting on 4 nice wet coats of the clear, and then I had to let that cure. You know, it says let it cure for 8 hours. I let it cure for 2 days because with as much clear on it that there was, it still felt like it was a little susceptible to damage. So once that was done, I masked off the pants and the boots, painted those black. At the same time, I painted the hands black and glued on the little fins. Did a little bit of metal dry brushing on those. For the boots and the gloves, I did a little gray dry brushing so they look a little weathered. Sorry about my feather dust. I'm trying to keep dust off of them. So that's him. And then I masked off the leather pouches, sprayed those leather, and I kept the gold and matte finish, so the gloss plays off really well with the matte. I'm going to come in a second and show his face. I'm really proud about the portrait and his hair and the eyes. Super pleased with how that looked. For the base, I just kept with kind of like a brown tile. I think the prototypes were more kind of an orange tile. I want something a little more neutral with grayish green grout. The stone is actually several layers. It looks pretty gray right now, but in person there's some oranges, or not yet oranges, there's some yellows and reds in the stone. It's real subtle, but it's there. The emblem was, I spray painted the emblem gold, and then I hand painted the black. That was much easier than trying to mask it. For the cape, this was actually not, I thought this would be difficult, but it really wasn't too bad. The masking took the longest, obviously, because you have this ribbon of gold that goes around. And to mask that, I used 3M vinyl tape. Same kind of tape you use for like taping off cars when you're doing like flames and stuff like that. It's super flexible and pliable, and it turned out really well. And the cape does have a little shading, and it's very subtle. It's there. I can see it right now here in person. It's probably not showing up in the camera, and it probably will not show up in my final photos, but it's there. It's very subtle. When you shade black, it's real easy to turn it gray. A lot of guys will overshade their black and it'll look like gray with really dark shadows. The trick is to spray black and then basically add like 10% white to your black. So it's a very, it's like a dark gray, maybe 20% white. Hit the highlights and then go back and mist the black back over your highlights. And then in person it looks real natural and real subtle. For the cape on with a semi-gloss finish, which I typically don't do. I typically would do a flatter gloss, but again, I was kind of experimenting with different finishes and stuff on this piece. So with the semi-gloss cape, the matte finish of the floor, the base, the high gloss of the suit, and the matte of the other stuff, and the gold, that looks really nice. The gold inside the cape is matte gold. Looks real nice. So that's kind of the process. For the staff, it's just a simple steel color. Didn't really do anything fancy with that. So let me come in a little closer and kind of show you the portrait. Move my light in so I can get closer. And I'll have to adjust the exposure for 1 second. Let me do that real quick. Oop, that's too dark. Right about there. Okay. Let's come in a little tighter on the portrait. Really, I mean, he just looks really freaking killer. He's sold already. I already sold him. I had contemplated keeping him because I really like him, but as I just posted earlier today, I don't have room to display these. I have no room to keep all the boxes. So, it's all about the painting process for me and sharing the work. So if I can paint something and I can show it off at Wonderfest or at a model show and talk techniques and stuff to other people, I'm satisfied. So this guy's already been sold. It'll be shipping to Singapore, I think. I can't remember. Singapore. But yeah, but I love the skin tones. It's nice, it's a nice pale pinkish, it looks like a young guy, nothing too masculine. So it fits the character very well. But and then for the eyes, they actually have a pearl coating on them. I'm not sure if they're going to show up in here. But they do have a slight pearl sheen to them. And I love the hair. The hair is several different layers, base coat of the black, and then just kept adding highlights with browns. And the final highlight's actually flesh tone. And that really, really sets it off very nicely. So, but right there, you can see how shiny that red is. It is smooth as glass, guys. It is crazy. No wet sanding, no buffing. It's all in how you spray the paint. If you know how to spray it, there's no reason to wet sand and buff it. So it's it's a technique. You have to learn it and practice. So, but this is, we can kind of come in close and look at some of the other details. There's the leather belts. Nothing real fancy there. You can see the kind of the dry brushing and weathering on the fins of the arms there. Let's see, I'm going to adjust my exposure again. Just a little brighter. It's not really that bright, but I'm just adjusting it to show off some of the other stuff. I ended up having to do the pants twice. I masked it off, sprayed it, and then I let that actually cure overnight. Then when I went to go mask them to do the pouches, I had a little bit of lifting, so I had to redo them again, unfortunately. Sometimes that happens. So I had to sand them down and redo them. Here's the cape with all the dust on it. So right there, you can kind of see a little bit of the shading right here. You can see that little subtle bit of gray. And that's when I do black, that's all I do. I don't do super high contrast. It doesn't look right. But right there, so right there, that's very close to what it looks like in person. You can barely see that shading, but it's nice and subtle, but it's there. Just love all the different finishes and how they play off each other. Works really well. There you can see that again, that high gloss against the matte and the satin finish. I couldn't be happier with this piece. There you can kind of see some of the shading, the red right there, it catches, you can see it. But yeah, really dig this piece. So a great piece by Salt and Pepper. For me, is a relatively quick build. I wanted to squeeze something in between all these commissions I'm doing. And I looked at what I had, like, oh, he should be fairly simple. And he was, you know. I got him done. I painted the head when I was painting all the other heads for the Wolverines and the Captain Americas I'm doing and Spider-Mans. So I had the head painted a couple of weeks ago. And then I just spent last week and the beginning of this week finishing up the suit and stuff. So there he is, quarter scale Robin, sculpted by Avi. This was produced by Salt and Pepper. And this was number... I want to say it's number 30. I have to go back and check because they forgot to write the number on the bottom of the base. And the producer sent me the number. I want to say it's number 30, but I could be wrong. But anyway, I'm going to take photos now, and I'll post photos at the end of this video for you guys to look at. And as always, thanks for watching. This is Matt Morozic. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.